Imagine a world where the keys to America's energy future and even its global influence might be shifting, not in Silicon Valley labs or Texas oil fields, but deep inside, a nondescript reactor on the edge of China's Gobi Desert. What if a technology first pioneered in the United States decades ago is now powering China's boldest leap toward clean energy dominance? As the U.S. debates electric cars and solar panels, China is building nuclear reactors faster than any country in history, setting the stage for a new era where the safest and most abundant nuclear fuel thorium could quietly replace oil itself. Here's what's actually happening. In 2025, China approved 10 new nuclear reactors in a single sweep, bringing its total pipeline to well over 100, and is racing to lead the world in technology that harnesses not uranium, but thorium, a silvery metal so energy-rich experts call it the fuel of the future. This isn't a sci-fi vision. These are reactors based on blueprints, first tested by American scientists in the 1960s. While the U.S. mothballed its molten salt reactor program, China invested billions, mastered the design, and recently achieved a first no other nation has, refueling a molten salt thorium reactor without ever shutting it down. This under-the-radar milestone solves engineering challenges that have haunted nuclear energy for generations. Minimal meltdown risk, dramatically less toxic waste, and the potential to provide heat and clean hydrogen for heavy industry. In a time when the world is desperate to cut carbon emissions, that means potential not just to change how we make electricity, but to fundamentally shift global power, industry, and the future of oil itself. Data show China now has more reactors under construction than the US, France, and Russia combined. By 2030, its nuclear output could overtake America's for the first time in history, fueling everything from steel production to high-speed rail. Why? Because China's vision isn't just about decarbonization. It's about energy security, independence from imported oil, and let's be blunt, reshaping the global playing field. As China's leadership builds ties with dozens of developing nations through its Belt and Road Initiative, offering next-generation reactors even to countries shut out of Western nuclear technology, we're watching the rise of a nuclear Belt and Road that could shape alliances for decades to come. For Americans, the implications are tangible. A nation that once led the world in nuclear innovation now finds its own research fueling competitors abroad. U.S. reactors still rely on Cold War-era technology, with projects hampered by red tape and delays that stretch into decades. Meanwhile, Chinese plants are breaking ground and coming online in under 7 years, the same amount of time some U.S. projects spend just getting permits. China's centralized system pours capital into nuclear manufacturing, with streamlined supply chains and a workforce trained en masse to deliver what the Politburo calls dual circulation energy independence. For reference, China is aiming to replace all of its nearly 3.0 coal-fired generators with clean alternatives by 2060, and nuclear will be the backbone of that transition. But the story isn't as simple as America lost, China won. The original molten salt reactor was built in Tennessee as part of a Cold War race to find safer, more flexible nuclear designs. Oak Ridge National Laboratory's team ran their liquid-fueled thorium testbed successfully for years. Physicist Alvin Weinberg envisioned a future where the U.S. would export affordable, meltdown-proof reactors worldwide, but the concept was quietly sidelined in the 1970s in favor of uranium-based reactors that provided both power and material for nuclear weapons. The irony? That technical data, declassified and sitting on library shelves, became the seed for China's project decades later. Now, as China leapfrogs into commercial-scale deployment, the advantages of thorium reactors can't be ignored. Unlike uranium plants, which require high-pressure containment and produce waste toxic for thousands of years, molten salt thorium reactors work at atmospheric pressure, have built-in shutdown systems, and their waste can be safely managed within a few centuries. This means safer plants in more locations near cities, along coasts, even in remote deserts. And because thorium is 3 to 4 times more abundant than uranium and found in regular rock, supply chains become less vulnerable to geopolitical shock. For the American workforce, this transition holds both threat and promise. On one hand, the U.S. nuclear industry struggles to build domestic enthusiasm due to the perception of outdated plants and 3 Mile Island's long shadow. On the other, the next wave of jobs in advanced nuclear construction, hydrogen, and industrial decarbonization may flow more toward China than Ohio or Pennsylvania if U.S. policymakers don't rethink old assumptions. Think of the solar panel revolution where American inventors pioneered it in the 1970s. But Chinese companies now dominate the global market. Are we about to see a nuclear rerun? There are hopeful signals. Private companies like TerraPower and Oklo are pursuing advanced reactor designs, and the U.S. has invested billions in modular reactors and fast-tracking regulation. But these efforts are a sprint to catch up. Meanwhile, China's government has committed to deploying 150 new nuclear reactors by 2035, enough to permanently alter the direction of global energy markets, while promising developing nations clean heat, power, and independence from oil. So the question that divides experts and policymakers is this: will the U.S. double down on its own advanced reactors, reawaken the promise of thorium, and compete? Or will it watch as China sets new rules for global energy and industry, using a technology that American science made possible? Because beneath the headlines about clean energy and climate, a far bigger story is quietly unfolding. Who supplies the energy that powers steel mills, cargo ships, data centers, and even the batteries in your car? Who sets the standards and gets to export not just commodities, but entire systems that tie countries together for generations? What's happening now isn't a distant scenario. It's rolling out on shipping docks, in desert labs, and in the boardrooms where energy policy for 2050 is being written today. U.S. and European companies, if they want to stay competitive, will have to bridge the gap between regulatory caution and innovation, or risk their own scientists' dreams fueling someone else's industrial future. As we watch new reactors light up across China, the U.S. faces a defining question. Can it reclaim its role as a technology leader, or does it resign itself to being a customer in the new age of nuclear? The stakes, as always, extend far beyond kilowatts. They touch jobs, security, global influence, and whether America shapes the future or simply reacts to it. So, what do you think? Is the U.S. on track to remain a leader in energy innovation? Or are we handing the baton to China for the second time in a generation? Share your perspective below. Is this nuclear path a threat, an opportunity, or both for the West? Let's get a real debate started right here.